10:55 a.m. The plane taxis down the runway and departs Houston Hobby, headed towards Midland International Airport. 9 a.m. Elizabeth and JR arrive at the airport to meet Betsy. "Mama, where's Daddy?" Jim asks. "He had to go to the office today to meet Norman Mailer." "Mailer Oil?" Betsy said. "Rand's old man," JR said. "Yeah, well, your dad wanted to meet with him before he took his family off to Christmas in Waxahachie." They get into the car and drive towards the ranch. 9:35 a.m. At Swainfield, Betsy is feeding the mules. The ranch hands had spent the greater part of the morning milking the cows. Tomorrow, they will be taking 14 bulls and goats to the butcher to sell for meat. 5:50 p.m. Jim pulls up into the drive. And he sees JR on the front porch. "Well, I'm glad to see you didn't trash the place," Jim said. I'm taking us all out to eat tonight at the Picture Club. So get your best clothes on." Jim had signed for a major contract for a rig and no trees to begin test drilling tomorrow. 7:50 p.m. A caravan of cars and trucks bearing the Hendrick family head over to the Picture Club in downtown Midland. In one car was Jim, Betsy, JR, and Elizabeth. Another behind in the truck was Kyle, Madison, and little George. 8:15 p.m. At the Picture Club, JR and his father order a prime rib dinner. Jim orders a schooner of beer. JR gets a root beer. Betsy gets a margarita. And Elizabeth gets a wine cooler. Kyle also gets some beer as well. Coming. Give me a minute. What the hell? There we go. Back to the story. Okay. Eight 15 p.m. At the Petro Club, JR and his father order a prime rib dinner. Jim orders a schooner of beer. JR gets a root beer. Betsy gets a margarita. And Elizabeth gets a wine cooler. Kyle also gets some beer as well. We now go to December 14th. Wrong one. Oh, okay. Oh,
I'm sorry.
Alright, let me get where I was. Okay. December 14th. 1993. 5:25 a.m. Jer wakes up in his room and starts listening to music. His sister Christine had not come home yet, but she would be home after school. Meanwhile, Kyle summons Charlotte and the livestock midwives to help 7 of the cows and 7 of the goats give birth. His plan for the day was to take 7 goats and 7 bulls to a butcher in Midland for sale. Since 5 a.m., the ranch hands have been slaughtering the bulls and goats to be taken for sale. 6:05 a.m. At Springfield, Kyle is overseeing the slaughter of selected bulls and goats. The butcher shop would be open at 7 this morning, and Kyle and Festus would take the carcasses there. 8:20 a.m. Jared sits down to breakfast with his parents and grandmother. I got to be in the office this morning, and then I'm driving off to No Trees this afternoon, Jim said. What you got going on, Junior? Oh, I thought that I would ride bandit a little bit after breakfast, listen to Andrew House, and go swimming, Jared said. I prefer Andrew House over Rush Limbaugh any day. Jim, where will you be coming home? Betsy asked. Just in time for dinner. You just make sure that Christine gets home, Jim said. 8:35 a.m. At the Hendrick Oil offices in downtown Midland, Jim is meeting with State Senator Till Bibbins. They're talking about Jim's replacement for the Railroad Commission. Governor Ann Richards was thinking about appointing Evan Lund from Waxahachie, Texas. Lund was against further oil exploration. Evan Lund was being backed by Mike Christopher, which is something that chafed Jim to no end. 10:25 a.m. J.R. is done riding Bandit, and he rushes back into the house to his grandmother. She's sitting there watching The Price is Right. Elizabeth is relieved that President Clinton hadn't come on the air in quite a while. 11:45 a.m. J.R. is listening to Andrew House in his room. Bill Clinton is on hiatus until tomorrow, when he plans to announce the resignation of Secretary of Defense Les Aspin. After Somalia, these eyes cannot be tricked. 1:05 p.m. Jim hops in his truck and goes off to the rig in No Trees. So far, they had drilled 1,000 feet below surface. Geologists from Nacogdoches said that The thorough samples were favorable for oil. 2 p.m. Gerald decides to go swimming at Springfield's indoor swimming pool. He goes swimming for about an hour. 5:45 p.m. After digging about 60,000 feet, Jim was getting impatient. Suddenly, up from the ground came bubbling crude. The well was a gusher, which means millions of dollars for Hendrick oil and Mailer oil. 7 p.m. The Hendrick family sits down to an Italian smorgasbord to celebrate Jim's striking oil. Tomorrow, Jim would be headed to Orla to a less remarkable rig. The 15th, 16th, and 17th of December passed quietly. We now go on to December 18th. December 18th. $1993. December 18th, 3:30 a.m. Jer had been up and down all night with the sniffles. Now he is up in his room listening to music. For the past few days, his father had been to Orla, Pecos, and Albuquerque with Claude. Now today, he was in the ranching business, going with Kyle to a cattle auction in Rankin. Today, J.R. reluctantly accepted an invitation for a country club party with Brad and Associate Dean Rima Jacobson. J.R. had grown to dislike Mrs. Jacobson for her defense of Brad and criticizing his father. 4:40 a.m. At the ranch, Kyle is branding the new cows and bulls that had arrived yesterday. He has some of the ranch hands round up 18 of the 36 remaining cattle to auction in Rankin. Meanwhile, JR is listening to NRS Radio. NRS Radio is a conservative libertarian radio news outlet. 7:10 a.m. JR, Jim, Elizabeth, Betsy, and Christine sit down for breakfast. Cinnamon rolls or apple fritters. What you got going today? Jim asked. Well, I got that party with Brad at 3, JR said. I wish you didn't have to go to that, Jim said. Yeah, Brad and his nerd herd, Christine said. Christine, Elizabeth scolded. And after the party, you have dinner with Jim Bob Horton, Betsy said. Yes, at the kettle, Jared said. I'm sad to see Ken won't be joining us. Just goes to show you. Wynn and Horton are dorks, Christine said. 9 a.m. Jared goes out into the cold air and climbs aboard Bandit. Jim and Kyle have already left for the cattle auction in Rankin. Jared had ridden Bandit